Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Common Sense Guys channel. Or, as some of you guys do know me as now, I'm Jason. How you all doing? And welcome. Today we're going to be taking on the massive intellect that is Russell Brand, and today we're going to be talking about the Swedish election and what good old Russell thinks about the actual election and how nationalism is bad. Or the idea of a civic nationalism is bad. I'm sure he knows what the difference is, obviously. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's crash into this and let's see if we can actually make this party rock, shall we? Yeah, I was trying something different. It didn't really work. Let's get in and watch the video, shall we?
The results of the Swedish election have got people talking. We're people, let's do talking.
Yeah, we've got literally a couple of seconds in, and yeah, it seems like Russell was actually trying to do a kind of a joke, I suppose, but he's a comedian. Surely he should be able to do a better joke than whatever that attempt was. Surely? Possibly? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, let's get on, shall we?
The Sweden Democrats, he insisted, are the fresh force in politics.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose Sweden took in would you say it's a large number of immigrants in the last year?
Yes, Russell. Everybody would say that Sweden actually took in the largest amount of immigrants in the whole EU, actually, to be fair. They took in more than what the UK did, they've took in more than what Germany have, and they're having the most problems. I wonder if there's a causation with a correlation. I wonder. It's a possibility, I suppose. But then again, it's just a correlation. Doesn't always work that way, I suppose, does it? Never mind then. Let's carry on.
And it seems, as one of the responses, there's a rise in nationalism and anti-immigration sentiment.
Yes, Russell. It's not like it has absolutely anything to do with a surge in rape cases, puts focus on crime ahead of Sweden's election or anything, or crime has becoming one of the hot button issues ahead of Sweden's election in September, and the final data from 2017 shows that security in Sweden has been going the wrong way in recent years. The country has seen a continued rise in reported rapes, which increased 10% last year and are up 35% over the past 10 years. That's almost half again, Russell, than what it was. The number of reported rape cases was 73 per 100,000 citizens in 2017. That's up 24% in the past decade. Russell. Has nothing to do with the fact that people are actually worried about what's going on in their country. They're just racists and xenophobes and, they're nationalists, so they're bad. Let's carry on. So gang shootings and criminality have ended up at the forefront of the political agenda ahead of the election. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven and opposition parties have pledged to battle gang violence by increasing spending on police and sharpening punishment. The police have been criticised for failing to clear up crimes and for an inability to control the volatile suburbs surrounding Sweden's major cities. Shootings and the news of hand grenade attacks have made major headlines. This isn't your Daily Mail. This isn't your right-wing publication. This is fucking Bloomberg that is telling you there are hand grenade attacks. And they're on police stations, by the way. We'll get into that very, very shortly. The number of cases of deadly violence has surged in the past 3 years to an average of 110 per year from 81 in the preceding 3-year period. So over a 3-year period, there was a total of 81 deadly cases of violence. And now in the last year alone, it was 110. Yeah, they have no reason or provocation to be worried about what's going on at all. Do they, Russell? None whatsoever. partly to a rising number of deadly incidents with firearm, which has mostly killed men in the largest cities. But when looking at it per capita, deadly violence has remained largely unchanged, at between 0.7 and 1.2 cases per 100,000 citizens. But that is because Sweden's population is booming, reaching 10 million last year due to a record inflow of immigrants from mainland Syria and Afghanistan. Interesting how they would put that into place, isn't it? In recent years as well as high birth rates, the government has since tightened immigration rules to cool the inflow. There's almost like there's a correlation for some reason there, Russell. And I'm not even the one that's insinuating that. That's the actual government that's actually already been put into place, Russell. Now let's move on to what the police actually have to deal with in the emergency services, shall we? So now that you can see that even Swedish firefighters, which have nothing to do with police or corruption or anything else like that are there to literally save your life from being burnt by a fire or stop the building from collapsing on you. Yeah, the firefighters were forced to abandon burning building in no-go zone because people, won't give a description, were throwing glass bottles and trying to set their equipment alight. The police were called for this as well, and they were beaten. They were also had glass bottles thrown at them to the point of one of them being stabbed with the bottle. Yeah, there might be a reason why people are turning to civic nationalism. There might be a reason why people are leaving the idea of the left. Might be reasons why on that side of things. And if you think the police are safe, my God, they're not. So yeah, even the police are not safe. Swedish police station is rocked by a hand grenade attack with multiple vehicles damaged. Let me reiterate that again. Swedish police station is rocked by a hand grenade attack. Yeah. Now let's see if the army has ever been called in, shall we? So you know it's bad when Sweden are going to deploy an army in no-go zones. And it's published by leaflets preparing for war, apparently. Interesting, isn't it? Making sure that they keep the police to the point of the president actually saying we will do whatever it takes to root out these gang violence. Interesting, isn't it, on that one? So now that we've actually got that out the way, we've actually got some politics actually in there, and maybe the possibility of the reasons why, rather than some diatribe that's going to be coming out of your mouth on the idea of what maybe this could actually be, there's actually reasons for why it is, and all of those reasons are linked in the description box below of this video. So if you want to peruse around for yourself, then please do so. Some of the stories on here are absolutely amazingly crazy, and yet people still think that this is just a rise of nationalism because people hate immigrants. There's reasons why people hate. There's reasons why people do what they do. Learn what they are. Stop being afraid of what you actually think is going on and find out what is going on. That being said, let's get back into this video and the fuckery that is Russell Brand.
He wants to talk to the main political leaders in Sweden who have so far shunned cooperation with his hardline anti-immigrant movement. But
it's interesting that the other elected parties don't want to collaborate with the Swedish Democrats, because it suggests that there's a kind of flimsiness to their belief in democracy. What is democracy if you don't concede to people you disagree with, particularly after democratic process?
I actually have to say, well done to Russell Brand on this one, because that takes a big person to actually say and actually talk about the fact that the parties themselves, after a democratically elected process, should actually be able to quell their differences to a point and actually be able to work together. It's the Social Democrats of Sweden that have decided that they are never ever going to work with the Democrats of Sweden or Democratic Sweden. And yeah, it's a interesting point on that one. But that's the way that democratic processes work, and I have to say to you, Russell Brand, well done for being consistent in the value and truth on that one. Well done.
I don't know whether Brexit or no Brexit is a good thing, but democratically, that's what happened. My general feeling is, can we organise our systems so that the maximum number of people feel that they are safe and loved and are fulfilling their potential as human beings and feel connected to purpose?
Yeah, there's that word fucking salad again. It doesn't really matter if you feel that you are working, got a purpose and things like that and happy. The thing is that people can be given purpose for working. Some people can be given purpose for just living and existing. The sense of purpose is always going to be to the individual. To be able to cater as a collective for every individual is ridiculous. The way that you cater for a collective of individuals is by giving the individuals the opportunity to be able to do what they want that is actually able to process with them. That means that they have an economy, that means that they have a workforce, that means that they are able to do what they need to do and educationally. It's not that hard. But it's still a wishy-washy statement for you to go, well, I think that we should do this and we should do that and we should give everybody a hug. No, let's actually deal with the situations that are put in front of us and, actually talk about it. Yeah.
How do you politicise that? How do you organise that? Probably not at the level of nation states or globalisation, particularly if it's globalisation fuelled by powerful economic titans.
See, I'm not 100% sure what you're actually trying to do here at this point in time, Russell. Are you trying to suggest that you want to get rid of the idea of politics, the idea of policy, the idea of that aspect of it? Or are you trying to suggest that there's no way of actually getting to your sense of utopia, which is not everybody's sense of utopia? That's the reason why the idea of a utopian nation would always fail, because every individual's idea of utopia would be slightly different and some would be completely different. It would be a dystopia. But the point still remains. Are you conceding that it's a case of that you can't get with what you want without either destroying politics, or you just can't get what you want? I'm guessing it's the latter.
Huge, globally roaming tech giants and conglomerates. But what's interesting about this time is people are rejecting the systems that they themselves implemented and benefited from because it's not going the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, it's really funny that, isn't it? How it seems that people that use a democratically used process, i.e. a referendum or referendi, to be able to decide on the future of their own country, and yet people are pushing for a process to go against what the will of the people, regardless of your vote, decided that they were going to do. It's funny how that always seems to be a leftist ideology, doesn't it? The same as it is this way in Sweden, that Sweden, the left or the moderate left, are saying that they're not going to work with this other section of the government to be able to form a government. We'd rather absolutely tear up the democratic process that they devised to be able to sort out the kinship that's been around for tens of decades of years, tons of years. And yet they want to push it so that they're going to destroy it because they don't agree politically on somebody. It sounds very, very similar or reminiscent of what's going on in this country, regardless of the vote that you decided or cast. It's almost like it's predominantly something to do with human nature, as in it's selfish, idealistic point. Isn't it?
I think if they don't speak with us, they're going to have big problems in the future, and the Swedish Democrats is just going to continue growing.
This is the people. We're the party of the people.
I suppose you can't tell people for hundreds and hundreds of years, you are Britain, you are America, you are Sweden, and then alter the recipe of what that identity is without there being some kind of reflux, rejection, contradiction or opposition. You know,
Correct. It's almost like trying to give somebody a cultural identity, or put it into an aspect of somebody that's claiming that they are from another country that wants to keep their ethnic culture or the idea of it. Surely that's what you would actually fight for, wouldn't you? If somebody's come across and they want to keep their cultural identity, well, it's the same thing as a national identity. That's what cultural identity means. You also have a demographic or geographical point in the actual country in itself that has its own cultural tendencies. You look at England, it's one of the most diverse amount of cultural differences in a small amount of area, probably in Europe, in fact, probably in the world. Now, I'm not trying to say that that's an amazing thing, I'm not trying to say that that's a great thing. I'm just pointing out that differences can also be done culturally, even on the actual nation that they're in. But that's what makes us human. It's not the fact of trying to erase those differences, but accepting those differences exist and realizing that those differences can and sometimes are beneficial to the cultures that are actually trying to adapt to it. That's the way that ideas transmute through each other and actually progress. By interaction, by challenging, by realizing that some aspects of your ideology and idea are wrong and some of theirs is also wrong, but put them together and you've got almost a perfect idea and ideology. Welcome to humanity, Russell.
like 50, 60, however many years ago it was, the British people and the people from the British colonies, it weren't Billy Connolly who was particularly dragged into it, or Brian Connolly, former British colonies, were dragged into a war to protect an idea. And then now that those people are no longer required, whether they are former colonial people or British white people.
Russell, are you trying to talk about stuff that happened in the Second World War? Are you honestly trying to say that where some people, especially Germany, were after almost the whole world, and at some aspects and some points all over the world was fighting some aspect of war, and you want to say that because England was able to pull in more of their colonies to be able to try and win the war, especially from places like India and obviously places and things that happened in India as well as in other countries as well. The thing is, after the war, and after the Second World War specifically as well, all the colonies, or at least not all of the colonies, were actually given their independence. They were able to celebrate their independence. And then all the way up after the war, were actually able to celebrate and gain their independence. I really don't understand what your point is. You're trying to suggest that because that they were a British colony, that these colonies lost their cultural identity. Where in actual fact, those colonies probably have more cultural identity than what English people do now, simply because English people are afraid of expressing their actual cultural identity. But please do go on.
Now that they're no longer required, the narrative of nation is being sort of torn up and dispersed. It's understandable that people would have anti-immigration sentiment because the news is full of anti-immigration stories.
Russell, my friend, listen to thy words. It's not the case that people are anti-immigration. If people were anti-immigration, then people wouldn't want any sort of travel ever in the world. People want travel, people want to move, people want to be able to settle where they want to settle. The thing that people actually have problems with is mass immigration, and most importantly, immigration from countries like Syria and Afghanistan that are literally, as I've proven already, increasing rates of crime exponentially. By any sort of demographic that you want to choose, the crime rates are going up by factors. And you want to sit there and say that this is just right-wing hysteria that's going on? You're the problem in the reason why the right and the populists are actually gaining traction and gaining momentum. Because you're not willing to actually talk about the actual issues that are affecting working class people. Generally the fact, especially in Sweden, of their cars actually getting blown up and set on fire simply because they're bored and are going to make a point. But I'm sure you're aware of everything that's going on in Sweden and not just making a privileged guess, or should I say a left-leaning avenue on what you actually think. I'm guessing.
They are continually blamed for complex economic situations they can't possibly have contributed to.
Look, Russell, I know economics is not one of your strong points. If you have, say for instance, a nationalistic population, or a native population, should we say rather, that has, an occupation. I'll do the numbers easy for you as well. Say you have an occupation that has jobs that have created for 100 people. You have native born people that are already at 150. That means 50 people have to go on a welfare system because there's not enough jobs for them. Now, if you add another 200 people, let me be more generous actually. Let me be in the case of trying to do percentage wise. If you now include another 20 people to go on top of what's already there, you now have 170 people trying to apply for jobs that are only 100. You're trying to suggest that this doesn't factor into the economy? That this doesn't factor into the chances that are happening? It's the same thing for doctors, okay? Let me simplify it. If you have 200 places at a doctor's and you have 250 native born people that are in the area that want to get to the doctors, they have 50 over, say for instance, so they're very busy. You then have another 20 put on top of that, so now you have 270. Now they're extremely busy, and now that they are running very, very high on efficiency, they're not. Let's be honest, they're not. They're trying their best, God bless them, but they're really struggling because of the sheer numbers. More numbers does not help economical pressures. It doesn't alleviate it. It increases it. But please continue.
Why would you leave and flee your country? And what are the reasons that they left and fled their country? And what is the role of the West in people leaving and fleeing their countries? But for the people whose communities are receiving new people, the agitation is a likely result of that when these people have been primed and groomed to believe in the nation state.
That's an absolute falsehood, Mr. Russell Brand. An absolute falsehood. If you look at the United Kingdom, for instance, in its entirety, we've always been a nation that's either been invaded or a nation that has had people that have immigrated to the nation. You look at how Sikhs and Indians that have come across after the Second World War, they integrated quite well. Yes, there was some problems, nobody's going to dispute that, but they integrated quite well. The thing is, it wasn't mass immigration. Again, with people from the Windrush generation that come here to rebuild the actual country after the Second World War, amazingly. They were also here and were also able to integrate quite well, simply because there wasn't that many. By that many, I mean mass immigration. If it's a trickle down after year after year after year, then the country can actually assimilate and actually make them actually better. That doesn't mean that their culture is not great. That doesn't mean that they are horrible people. It just means that the culture that they are coming into is different and they have to integrate into the culture they're coming into. The same as if I moved to Spain, I would have to integrate into their culture because I'm moving to fucking Spain. All of this still had its problems, and yes, there's always going to be pockets of people that are scared of change and scared of everything that's going on. But generally, most people were acceptance and accepted what was going on. Just because that you believe in a nation doesn't mean that you don't accept other people coming into your nation to look for a better life. because you have empathy and you understand the reasons why they're doing it. And for you to even come out and suggest that people that believe in a nation wouldn't let other people to actually come into said nation to better themselves is absolutely ridiculous, and shows that you have done no research on civic nationalism whatsoever. So with that all being said, I think it's best for me to say au revoir, farewell, adieu, auf Wiedersehen, I'll see you all again. But first of all, don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe to this video, and don't forget to check out my new videos. See you all again real soon. Bye bye for now.